Hello everybody and welcome back to another video with the 2020 Overwatch League regular season behind us and the postseason now underway. I wanted to take today just to do a little look back and reflection on the 2020 season because it has been one crazy ride and I just wanted to talk a bit about it and just reflect on what we had happen this year because it really has been an interesting year. It feels like so long ago. It doesn't even feel like the same year and the same season that we had homestands, right? Back in March, obviously, the last homestand was the Washington Justice homestand when the Paris Eternal finally beat the Fusion, the Fusion's first loss of the season, and they wouldn't lose another regular season game until June, July. You know, it was a long time. I think it was June before they lost another regular season game. Of course, they lost to the Florida Mayhem and the May Melee and whatnot, but it's just such an interesting season to look back on because it really has been crazy, you know? I remember, going back to March, right? Or even going back to February or January, whenever they first announced that after the Dallas Fuel homestand, all the Pacific games in China would be canceled, and they were going to move it all to Korea, and then the Korea matches got canceled, and all the teams were just kind of stuck, and then they just said, hey, we're going to have to cancel everything for the time being with the way everything is going on with COVID, and it was really crazy just how the early season went. I remember being on spring break, and my school was like, yeah, we're not going to reopen right away, and then I was out to lunch with a friend, like acting like, everything's cool and fine and nothing's happening. And then a week later, I'm in my, room like, this is awful and I want to get out of this. But I will say that the return of the Overwatch League was really, really good. And having the online play, even if it was not as ideal in terms of the playing conditions and the actual matches themselves, and you don't have the same impact when you can see these matches in person or you can see the fans of these matches. It's very different and it's not as entertaining, arguably, when you don't have the same just fan engagement. You don't have the cries and the shouts, and it made some of those games that weren't the most entertaining even more difficult because there wasn't the same fan factor that really made things good. But it was really, really great just to be able to have it this year when it really was needed more than anything else. This year has been crazy for everybody, obviously, not just for me, but for me, of course, it's been very crazy. I was essentially alone in my apartment for 3 weeks, just waiting and waiting and waiting to see what would happen. I drove home. I was basically stuck indoors for several months because where I'm from, it was getting hit pretty bad, so I was just trying to stay safe. When restrictions started to get lifted, things were a little bit better, but getting a job was going to be a nightmare. And by the time I could have gotten a job, I was already planning on leaving to come back down to school, and then school got all crazy. So it was just a really crazy time, and every day you just woke up and there was no idea. You didn't know what was going to happen when you woke up in the morning. But having the weekends, knowing that there is going to be something that I can occupy my time with every weekend was great. And it made me more productive during the week, getting videos out, pumping videos out. So this season really has been super special to me. As I'm sure it's been special to a lot of people. It's been rough to watch at times. It's been certainly a ride, and it's been disheartening, of course, seeing players retire and things go a little weird and awry just because of the situations surrounding online play. It's difficult to play online. It's difficult to play consistently online, and it's very difficult to run an entire operation online. But it was a good product nonetheless, and I think that watching the Overwatch League this year has been huge, and it's been arguably, to me, the best season to watch. The product has had some ups and some downs, but there were some really great moments that will stand out to me as some of the best moments in Overwatch history, of at least Overwatch League history, of the stuff I've seen. Paris's win of the Summer Showdown, the match against San Francisco and the match against Philadelphia were both incredible. Those two matches are both insane, just sparkles play. I mean, those two games in particular are super memorable to me. I will always remember those two games, and just the play that we saw out of Sparkle was crazy, and the play that we saw out of even EQO was crazy, and Striker, like, it was such a DPS centric meta, and it was so entertaining and so fun to watch. And the redemption story for Fearless has been such a great story, and it's such a great thing to watch, and a ton of redemption stories this year have been great. Birdring's redemption story, of course, obviously Fearless's redemption story. Even watching Ben Best and No Smite battle back against the odds when people kind of doubted them, and Sato, and I'm forgetting the other player who I had said was having a comeback year, and I feel really bad. But it was just like the storylines were great. The rivalries between San Francisco and Philadelphia has been great. Seeing some of these teams like Florida have a really down year and bounce back to have a really good year, a really strong year. Players like Fate having bounce back years. It's just been a really good year to watch, and I feel like it's one of the few years where we've really had a bunch of really competitive teams. 2019 was really just like you had two teams and you knew that the winner was going to be one of those two teams. In 2018, like, everyone thought New York was going to win, and it was that type of thing where it was like, you're like, yeah, New York's definitely going to win this whole thing. But there was close competition, at least, and you knew there was close competition. Like, if New York had lost in the finals to the LA Valiant, for example, if that had been what the finals was, I think people would have been like, the Valiant had looked really good towards the end of the season. It's not that surprising. New York had kind of slipped a little bit. But 2018 was at least really close and very competitive. But I think this season, too, has been super competitive. And, was it closer than 2019? Maybe not. You had two teams this season that only lost 2 matches, but they also didn't play each other. Philadelphia and Shanghai never played against each other. So it really is such a crazy season to look back on and to think about, because it's just been such a wild time, and I've just loved every second of it. And there's been some moments that have been a little less than ideal, obviously. There was all the stuff surrounding the Vancouver Titans that came out, which was one of the most difficult stories just for me to read. I actually felt, as I was reading it, I was like, this just like, it broke my heart to read it. The way that those players were treated and stuff like that really hurt to see, and to see a bunch of players who had been playing together for so long, who had been dominating just a year prior, just get cut loose like that, thrown to the wolves, essentially. It was stuff like that was really hard to look at. And to see some of these teams that you knew had a lot of talent, a lot of potential, just struggle and suffer because of the pandemic going on, players getting essentially just completely thrown away, or just players struggling to find their footing because they were on a team that didn't want them, or because they just weren't getting the playtime that they wanted, or they just were away from home and wanted to go back. And there was a lot of factors, obviously, that had led a bunch of players to go into retirement or whatever. But despite all that, the season still went on, and the season still gave us tons of really, really, really great Overwatch. I mean, you just think about the fact that before even all of COVID happened in the US, before they shut everything down, there was that match between the London Spitfire and the Washington Justice, where the London Spitfire full held the Washington Justice just outside the spawn doors on Dorado. Like, it feels like that was so long ago. Like, it doesn't even feel like that was the same season. Obviously, the Justice are a very different team now, but just in general, just this season has just been so crazy and wild, and I'm going to look back on the season very fondly, not because it was this season of just incredible moments constantly. It was up, it was down, it was rocky at times. Hero pools was a mess at times, and it made for some really weird weeks and some weird compositions at times. And you look at this playoff meta right now and you're like, oh, what is going on with some of this balancing? But it made it different, and it made it unique, and it made it interesting, and it made it where teams that weren't always as competitive were able to get some of those wins. They're able to look a little better at times because of the change in hero pools, and it made it where teams had to be on their toes more, and it made everything really interesting to watch. And I think it's been a season unlike anything I've ever seen. I've actually really loved how they've adapted, and I think that the league has really improved a lot this season in terms of communication. They've done a lot to really kind of share thoughts on things. Obviously, we've seen John Spector go on the Overwatch League broadcast a couple times. We've seen him go on Plat Chat once. We've seen Reddit posts from John Spector and Twitlongers from John Spector, and a lot of things explaining things that they're doing and they're changing. And we've gotten a really good look into the mindset of the Overwatch League. I think that's been a huge boost and a huge benefit for the fans of the season. So you get to actually see what is going on behind the scenes, which is something we don't normally get to see, even if it's only a small look. And I think that we've gotten a lot of just incredible changes, and we've seen the league grow a lot. Obviously, the season didn't go the way they had originally intended, and I think looking back on it, the format that the season was originally going to be of just homestands every week probably wouldn't have worked as well as the league had wanted it to, and it probably would have just caused even more burnout than what we got, and it probably would have led to more issues. So I actually think, in a way, the fact that the league had to adapt and had to change things and had to kind of figure things out on the fly, I think it ended up giving this season just a better format, and a format that worked a lot better, and a format that I think going forward should be a standard format or a normal format for the Overwatch League in general, because I think that the monthly tournaments are very good. I think they added a ton in terms of stakes, and they made some really great matches. You know, it's unfortunate to have to see teams never get to play each other this season. You know, I would love to have seen San Francisco play Shanghai at some point, but there's always still the chance in the final playoffs for that to happen. So who knows? But in general, I thought the formats were very good, and I thought that it was really interesting to see how different regions played differently. And I thought that having the tournaments was really good because you had some of the storylines where a team like Toronto can get top 4 in the Summer Showdown, and that saved them from having to play in the bottom, elimination match against the Boston Uprising or the Washington Justice, depending who they had picked if they were in that position. And I think that it's just been a really nice format and a change of pace from the past seasons, where I think that I didn't realize how monotonous the regular season just format was. I am a huge traditional sports fan, especially with football and baseball, American football, if there was any confusion. Those are two sports I love to watch. Baseball can be a struggle to watch because baseball, there's a lot of teams and a lot of games, and in a normal season, teams are playing 162 games, and that is a lot of baseball to try to watch and a lot of games to play, and you're playing every day, and it's hard to keep up. And football, it's not as many games, but you kind of get the sense sometimes with football season, you get towards like the middle of the season, late in the season, you're like, I'm really glad football's still going on, but I just kind of want to see the good games where I don't really want to watch the Ravens completely obliterating a team like the Bengals, right? Like, I don't want to watch this happen. Like a really good team beating a really bad team. Like, that's not entertaining. It's not fun to watch. But sometimes you even have things like that with the Overwatch League. And I think that it was nice having tournaments because it made it where matches had stakes. Teams had something to play for. Even your teams who had been, dominating everybody had a reason to play and had a reason to fight. And your teams who were struggling said, this is our chance to prove ourselves, to make a deep run, to do something good, and to make an impact on the players that we're playing against, on the analysts who are watching us. And I think that this season's format really shone through despite all the challenges and the hardships. And I think that you have to give a ton of credit to the Overwatch League team for being able to figure something out when everything was uncertain and things were just incredibly unclear how they would go. And really, this season has been super impressive. So I really do want to give a huge shout out to everybody on the Overwatch League team, from casters to analysts to producers to directors to executives, everybody, players, coaches, owners, everybody with the Overwatch League, I want to give a huge thank you to all of you for making a product that, despite all of the challenges and hardships, managed to keep people entertained and engaged, even while the world around us has been crazy and we've all been put into positions that we never ever expected to be in the midst of a global pandemic. It's just been a nice thing and a nice escape from reality for just a few hours every weekend, just to be able to be a community of people just having a good time. So thank you once again. That's really all I wanted to say today. Didn't really have anything planned. I just kind of was just gonna talk for a bit and share my reflection on this season. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on the 2020 season. If you think it was a success, a failure, if you enjoyed the craziness and the chaos, or if you preferred kind of the more normal structure that there was. There's not really a wrong answer. Just love to have a discussion about you and your thoughts about this season. But if you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing for more content like this in the future. That is all for me. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you are all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye bye.